Hi everyone, and welcome on this follow-up for text management inside ComfyUI. It's a video about text, so let's add some write text nodes. We will give some content, test, rabbit, blue. And I'm gonna recover a load image node. We are going to see a node that can combine several texts together, called combine text. To use that, you just have to connect the right text you want to combine. And the output will be the combination of them. Let's run that. And here you can see test and rabbit. Let's add blue to that. And here we have the 3 lines. Let's put 5. And send blue 3 times. So this is basically how it works. By default, the delimiter is a new line. So between every input, you will have a line break. You can change that if you want, with comma, space, or nothing, which can be useful sometimes. Here we are going to see slash, which is the delimiter for the folders on a Linux machine. I'm on Linux right now, so I will use that. Backslash would be for Windows machines. So I'm going to create a save image node. I will use mine, that just saves an image to a folder. No prefix in this one. For simplicity, I will just take the rabbit here directly. So now, the combine text node is giving us something that is a valid path. I can use this path as my folder name. It is indeed a very bad path, but it's a valid one. I can connect that to my save image node as the folder name. When I run that, I can see the image that was saved. And if I go on my file manager, in output/test, I have this: rabbit, blue, blue, blue. So here you can see the path of the image that was created. If I launch this workflow again, it will not create anything. This is because the workflow haven't changed. But if the image was instead generated by a case sampler or whatever else, they will just add up. Let's make a path that is a little better. So just test rabbit blue. Here you can see my image in test, rabbit, blue. So you can use this system if you want to organize your generation based on something. Here I just put random text, test, rabbit, blue. But you can make a path about anything. That can be an element of your prompt, like your main character or whatever. But it can also be something different, like the name of your checkpoint, followed by the name of the LoRa you used for that specific checkpoint. Inside that, you can have also the LoRa weight as a name for your folder. It's really up to you, of course. But here I wanted to show you a simple example with our rabbit here. Let's move on to something else. I'm going to show you a new node called write pick me chain. I'm going to put 2 of them here. Give value A and B. You can see they all have a button called Pick Me. This is where the magic will happen. If I click on Pick Me here, you can see that it turns green and it toggled the value picked. This node is now picked. You will see what that means. Let's do the same for the second node. This one is picked too, and green. When I launch the workflow, I have B, which is just like the normal write text node. Here in this context, in this workflow, the node on the left was just ignored. But the cool thing is that you can take any amount of node like that and chain them up. You just have to connect chain text to pygmy chain. When you do that, these two nodes are now linked. And the chain text will only output one of the values from the node inside the chain. What does that mean? When you click on pygmy now, you can see that the other nodes in the chain are turning gray, or back to the original color. They were unpicked or deselected. So you can use the same output and click on the button to change the value. Let's try with B green. And it's B output. Let's try with A green. And the output is A. So you can connect any amount you want and change them with a single click. It will only output the node that you selected. Let's put C and D now there. Here you have D, and go back to A. So I show you here with letters. But of course, these can be everything. They can be full prompts. They can be variables. They can be however complex you want them to be, as long as it is in text form. You can also have several chains. Let's make a new one. Here I will put 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will select 4. And you can see here I have A4. You can imagine using these values with the example of folders I showed you earlier. But let's keep it simple here. If you want to select something, just click on Pick Me. Here you have 2. I will just add a note for clarity here. We will make 2 chains. One will be for color, and the other will be for animal. So inside I will put some random colors. And some random animals. Now the selection is black and cat. I click on monkey, and the cat was replaced with a monkey. I select red, and red replaced black. But what if we want them to be variables instead? Let's add an advanced write text node here. We can't send the data as is. The output isn't a valid variable syntax. But you can use one of my node to transform your text as a new variable. This node is called setVariableFromText. You will choose the variable name inside the node, and the value of this variable will be given as input. We said that the top chain was color, so let's use color as variable name. Connect this node to variables, and we can use the special variable syntax here. Let's make a sentence. Here we have animal is red, and if I click on orange, I have now animal is orange. Maybe you remember from the last video that I have a save global variable node. Let's try to use that. But be careful, don't try to send the chain text. This isn't a valid variable syntax. You want to give it the output of my set variable node. I will put the same thing at the bottom. We will put this to the side for now. We will come back to that after. So now that the global variables have been saved, we want to load them. Here you can see that the variable color can be loaded from that. At the bottom, we will create the new variable to be animal, and launching that again. But since the last video, you might have noticed that now I have an extra input called file name. You can still use super global variables like before, which is just if you leave the file name empty. But you can also have a totally separate file that will store these global variables. You can use them as you wish, but to give you a few examples, they can be specific to a workflow, they can be specific to a character. It's really up to your imagination. Here I will just call it animal workflow. And I will do the same at the bottom. I will select elephant red. And when I do that, I have orange monkey. Why do you think that is? It is because the load global variable node is loading data from the super global variables. They can share the variable names with other files. In the end, it is just a different file. Load global variable is just loading the wrong file. So you can type animal workflow here and use that. But you can also refresh the page, and after that you will be able to see a list from all the variables file names you have on your computer. And from here you can select animal workflow. Still have the red elephant. I remove the file name. I still have the red elephant. Let's make the elephant orange. You remember when I told you that you could delete the save global variable nodes, that you don't necessarily need it. Here you can see I deleted them. And it is still working fine with my orange elephant. But if I change to monkey, the monkey is still an elephant. This is because this workflow doesn't change the file that is loaded by the global variable node. So in this situation, we need to keep the save global variable nodes. So let's put them back. And we can enable our advanced text node now. And we will try to use these variables. Animal is an orange elephant. Once again, this is a very trivial example to show you how to use all of that. The utility and the complexity is, after all, about you. Let's move on to something else. Now I'm going to show you my split node. Let's add a write text node. It's still a video about text management. Let's add a bunch of values separated by semicolons. 20, 0.40, scheduler name, sampler name. Just as an example. And we are going to connect that to one of my split node. Here you can see that it is going to split up the values of the input in different parts. Let's show you some of the results. Here my node is splitting nothing. Everything is on part 1. This is because to split the input, it is using a delimiter, which is the element that is in between the different parts. By default, that will be a new line. But in our case, it is a semicolon. So I'm changing that. And here you can see that it is splitting up the values in different parts. And just like in the previous examples I gave you, you can do whatever you want with them. Instead of a simple write text node here as input, you can imagine that you have a very complex workflow that will give you a specific string. This string might be taken at random from a very long list by, let's say, my line selector node. But let's go back to our simple example here. Sometimes you have these values and you want to do something with them. Let's say you have a K-sampler and you want to use this 0.40 value as a denoise for your workflow. But you can't connect that to it, because denoise is of a different type, which is float. But Bjornulf to the rescue, you can use some very convenient nodes of mine to convert them. Here we can use a node called anything to float. The alphanumeric value, or text 0.40, will be converted to a float number 0.40. And you can finally connect that to denoise. Before I show you a connection with my save node, it wasn't a problem to connect them there because this node takes as input a text. So you can just connect it directly. If you want an int, I have another node for that. Same for combined text. It is taking text as input, so you don't have to do anything special about that. But some nodes are going to require a specific type as input. So be careful about that. Let's change the delimiter to \n, which is a line break. So delimiter will just separate for every line. We will keep the same thing for now. Disable that because it's not connecting to anything anyway. This one too. Here you can see that the value was recovered the same way, just with another delimiter. But I have an option in split node called ignore before equal. This is basically made to be used with the variable syntax. So we can be more descriptive here in the write text node. Let's put steps equals 20, denoise equals 0.4. With this set to true, I will have 0.40. If set to false, I will have denoise 0.40. So it can be a convenient way to recover the value of a variable without really using a variable. But be careful with that, of course. Because if there is a line missing, for example, the node will just keep splitting the data, but will maybe send the denoise as your scheduler name or stuff like that. Here I'm just showing you what you can do with my nodes, but what you are going to do and how you are going to do that is up to you. Let's end this video with the Swiss knife of text management. My text replace node. This node will replace a text into another text. Let's try with a sentence. This is a, and then variable for animal. Let's connect that as input and display the output. We will detect animal and replace it by vehicle. Here it will work as a simple replacement for a string or basic text. It isn't limited about variable syntax. You can use whatever you want. Let's just replace A by O. And here we have onimol. At the beginning, there is just no O to replace. If the replace count is set at 0, it will replace every instance of it. If you limit it to, let's say, 1, it will change only the first O. Here we have Onimal. You also have an option called Use Regex. I will not teach you Regex here. It will take forever. But basically, it is a special syntax that can be used to represent something. Here, I'm just going to show you one special syntax, which is dot star. Dot star will replace everything. It can be a character, it can be 100 characters, it can be nothing, it can be anything. By putting it here in between the symbol less than and the symbol more than, this means detect everything that is in between the symbol less than and the symbol greater than. These two symbols included. It will just basically target all the variables. At the bottom, you can leave it empty if you just want to remove them. Or you can add something. Let's add XXX. And you have here, this is XXX. Let's start with a dummy output from DeepSeek R1. It is a thinking model, so they have these think tags. No, not string, think. And after you have the real answer. In the middle here will be the thinking process. Let's say you want to remove the thinking process from the output. So let's clean it up first. Let's take think opening tag here and remove it. And I did a mistake up there. The second one should be a closing tag, so with a slash. So in this case, I removed only the opening tag think. But what I want to do is remove everything in between the opening tag and the closing tag. So the regex syntax will be dot star for everything after, and we will remove everything until the closing tag. If we do that, look what happens. Nothing happens. The think tag even came back. This is because by default, this node will check every line one by one. Which means that in the process, every lines are going to be handled separately. It's a very convenient default behavior because you often want to run your regex on every line independently. If you want to use regex on several lines at once, you can toggle this multi-line regex. If you do that, you have this result. You can still see here the new line that is after the closing tag think. To remove it as well, you can, for example, just add a new line at the top. And here you have a clean result. That's it for this second video on text management. If you like my work, check out my Ko-fi page where you can support all of that. I have a lot of nodes coming up, so keep in touch on that. I would love to work on that kind of project more and more. So if you want to contribute to my work on Ko-fi, it would be amazing. Have fun, guys. I see you for the next one.